I have always believed, do what you can with what you have, where you are, and have faith, because the sky's the limit.
Welcome to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast, a weekly podcast providing career and creative inspiration to help you build a purpose-filled life. If you're interested in tapping into your creative potential, pursuing a career with passion, and building on your biggest and best resource, yourself, please join me on this path. I'm your host, Nancy Moore, and I want you to know that I'm on this journey with you. So let's get started. Before we jump into this episode, I'd like to take a minute to thank my sponsor, Cedar & Lily Clothier, an approachable upscale experience for women who love the shopping journey as much as beautiful clothing. They are empowered women empowering women. At Cedar & Lily, they provide exceptional clothes for extraordinary women. Look great, feel great. Cedar & Lily Clothier. You can find them in downtown Jinx and online at cedarandlilyclothier.com. Whitney Virden didn't think she had a creative bone in her body until she did some soul searching following a tragic accident that occurred in her family. That event instigated major reflection and life-altering changes where she reprioritized her life and changed direction to focus more on her family and kids. She severed ties with a traditional 9-to-5 job that she had where she traveled for work, and this break really allowed her time to explore a different career, and her love of floral design was born. Whitney is the owner of Roots and Blooms Floral Shop located in Bartlesville and Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Over the past few years, she has aligned herself spiritually, creatively, and emotionally and can clearly see her path to purpose. When I caught up with Whitney, she was selected to be among the floral artists at the Art in Bloom show at the Philbrook Museum of Art in Tulsa. This experience resulted in her winning first place from the guest boats. So if you check out her Instagram, you'll be able to catch a glimpse of what she did at that show. During this visit, you'll hear from Whitney about her career path in business, how she tapped into her creativity and revealed her artistic heart, and why she believes that everyone has some creativity in them. They just have to find it. So, Whitney, thank you so much for joining me today. I heard about you from a good friend who's been on the podcast, Adrienne Colwaite, because you're in the Bartlesville area.
Yes.
And what's really cool is you're going to be in a show at the Philbrook Museum. And This is actually going to air after that. It's very cool that you're going to do that. And so I thought we'll get to that and what you're going to be doing at the Philbrook. But first, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey. We started talking about it and I stopped you because I thought I got to hit record.
Yes.
So anyway, yes.
Yeah, so my floral journey has been it's been interesting it's hard to know like when exactly it started. I feel like I've always been drawn to nature and I've always liked, I would stare at leaves or I would look at things and I would just see like the beauty in them, but I never considered it as a career. I just admired it. And whenever I found out I was pregnant, I was 19 and I knew that I wanted to do something. I wanted to, give my child a good life. So the first thing I thought about doing was like, I got to go to school and I got to find a career that's going to make me money. So I remember I was going to be an accountant. I
was an accountant.
Were you?
Yeah, we have. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I should, I was thinking in Bartlesville, Phillips 66, it's a big company, and everybody with one of those little red badges, I thought, they had a really great life. So I thought, if I'm going to provide for my kid, I need to get one of those badges. And I thought an accountant would be a good idea. So I was working at a bank, opening up new accounts for new hires and seeing what they were coming in, how much they were making as new hires. So I was going to be an accountant. And the closer I got to it, I just felt like I was just in this deep, dark abyss. Like I just felt so lost in my life. I started getting depressed and I had no idea why. I was like, what is going on with me? Because I was just so focused on like, I got to make a living for this kid. And so I made an appointment with my advisor, who actually ended up being my Sunday school teacher, who prayed with me through the process and basically was like, I think you need to go a different route. So I ended up just getting my business administration with an emphasis in management. And I thought, I have no idea how I'm going to use this. Didn't have a business in mind, just was trying to get a bachelor's degree. So I got my degree and I had applied at Phillips and I got an offer, but I had also been helping my mother-in-law, who was in real estate at the time. I was her assistant. So I had just kind of gotten into learning more about real estate. I actually got my real estate license 2 weeks before I had my second child. And I was thinking, is this the route for me then? I should just be a real estate agent. I can stay at home with my kid. And I had gone to this big conference where they were, it was the first conference I've ever attended. So it was like, you can have the life you desire and you can be as big as you want. It just really just started calling to something inside of me. And I thought, I'm going to be in real estate. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to do that. And our broker at the time, she was looking for a possible team leader, somebody to help build her business. And she had approached me. I had been doing I was their tech coordinator because I was the only one in the office who knew how to use Facebook. So I was teaching all the agents how to use Facebook, all this stuff. She approached me and said, hey, $15 an hour. I'm going to start you off as just this tech coordinator, but my goal is to get you into that team leader. Cast the vision for me. This is what it could look like. This is what you could make. I really think you'd be a great fit for this, but basically had to earn it. I was going to start $15 an hour. That happened. Then I get my job offer at Phillips, making a lot more than $15 an hour, plus the benefits, plus everything. I had gone to college thinking that's what I wanted to do. That's what I had my eyes set on. And I had a big decision to make. Do I follow my heart and what she was casting and the vision and what the company stood for, and it just excited something in me? Or do I follow the plan? Go make the money, go do the whole retirement thing, and make a lot of money for my family, I guess. And my husband, of course, he's very logical. He's like, why are we even considering? Why are you juggling back and forth a corporate position and a $15 an hour no benefit position? He just couldn't understand. But I was just I can't explain to you. My heart is just not there. My head says yes, my heart says no. So I turned down the position at the corporation and I went for the team leader position. And I got so much training. I went to Austin all the time. I was being taught how to run a business, and I was being taught how to coach and all about productivity. And it really grew me as an individual. I was so challenged, and I had my own coach at the time, and I helped her expand into 2 different markets and grew the market by 77% in 1 year and her own a profit by 66% in 1 year. I mean, it just unleashed something in me. Well, around that time, I started getting focused on money again because I'm oh, here's a new avenue. I can go be a coach. And you would travel 8 weeks, you'd be gone 1 day or 2 days a week for 8 weeks, but you could go be this coach and you would travel all over the place and you do all this stuff. Well, I had 2 kids at home and I was already doing so much training and all this stuff, but that was going to make me so much money. And then we lost my nephew very tragically. And he was in a car accident and he was in a vegetative state and he was in a different state. And it just really, really rocked my world. And I quit. It really, really impacted me. And I thought, what is life about? What am I even doing? I'm oh, I'm going to make all this money and I'm going to do all this stuff. And then it was but I had my own kids at home. Most people thought my husband was a single dad because I had missed Christmas programs. I wasn't going to any of their school stuff. I was just focused. I was going to go make some money. So yeah, I quit. And for 1.5 years, I just was a stay-at-home mom. I started cooking for my family again, started doing laundry, spending time with my husband, spending time with my kids. And over the summer, we spent our entire time outside. And as we were walking around, I started seeing flowers, and I started cutting those, and I started bringing them inside. And then my husband, after about a year, was like, okay, we kind of need another income. We have 2 kids, and it would be nice to have income. So I think you need to go find something to do. Now, I still have my real estate license, wasn't selling any houses. He was telling me I needed to do something. And I ended up driving by a flower shop that had a help wanted sign. I had applied at that flower shop when I was 16 and didn't get the job. But here I am, 27, a little bit more confident. I thought, I'm going to go get that job. So I walked in, I applied, didn't hear anything. I was like, what the heck? I thought I nailed the interview. So I just stopped back in and was like, hi, I came in and applied for the job. And she was like, I'm so glad you came back in. I lost your paper, but wanted to hire you. So I got the job.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. The follow-up.
The follow-up. It's all of the follow-up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you really want it, go get it.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked with her for 2 weeks over Valentine's, and she was a traditional flower shop. I didn't really get to design anything. I could just green out vases. Like, that's pretty much all I did. Talk to the customers. My job was actually to call all of her past customers, make them an offer, and try to get them to make an order for Valentine's Day, which I come from sales, so I was like, oh, that's easy, I can do that. But one morning I was standing outside, and her shop was like on this highway, and my job in the mornings was to go out there, pick up trash that had kind of like blown over, sweep off the front porch, all that stuff. And one morning I was out there just sweeping her front porch, and it was like this thought just dropped into my mind, like, what would it be like if I was sweeping my own porch for my own flower shop? I was like, that would be wild. And I just kept sweeping the porch, and I just was like, okay, what would that be like to like start my own floral journey? So that's kind of how it started. So funny. And what I knew, this is exactly what I wanted to do. The day before Valentine's, I go into work, 8 o'clock in the morning. I get a 1-hour lunch break at noon, go back. We get a dinner break at 7, go back. I left there at 6 a.m. in the morning, drove all the way home, took a shower. We live 30 minutes out of Bartlesville. Took a shower, came back, worked that entire day, made my last delivery at 8 p.m. and came home, and my husband was like, what in the world just happened? And I said, I have no idea, but I absolutely love it, and I've never felt more energized. So I was like, this is what I want to do. And what is so funny about that is I think now about the Philbrook and the project that I've done there, and it's sculpting, and I'm literally cutting leaves into shapes and using their color to create faces and arms, and that's basically the color for my pieces. And I made her dress out of dried rose petals, and I have to glue those one by one onto the thing. And so Tuesday I started working on that at 9 a.m. and I went to bed at 5 a.m. I went to bed at 5 a.m., woke back up around 11, drove into town yesterday to do the fresh flower portion because I get 2.5 hours to set everything up today. I don't get to go in and start working till 2. And I have never felt more energized. And I just think when you love something, like, it is not meant to drain you. When you're thinking about a career, when you're thinking about a position, you should never put money first. That will come when your passion, we ended up opening up a second location. We started a location in Bartlesville. Roots and Blooms has just been growing. But for me, the most important thing has also been that training and teaching portion of it, which we've done workshops. Being Native American, there's less than 1%. We don't even have a 1% representation in the floral industry. Less than 1%. And how is that possible when natives are so in touch with nature? And, the industry hasn't been disrupted since the 80s, and it's been the same thing. And you have catalogs, and I feel like these companies have robbed the industry of the artistry of what floral design really is about. And so, we work very closely with nature. We partner with a farm out of Stillwater. You give me a budget, I'll make you something. I very rarely have a few designs that you can pick from because I work with seasonal products. I don't keep all these products on hand to put together some picture or reproduce some picture you see online. Now we have those out there so you can kind of get a feel, and I can talk to you like, do you want something wild? Do you want something modern? What are you trying to say? Because to me, I don't like duplicating. What's the fun in that? What's the fun in duplicating something over and over and over? Then it becomes more of like a conveyor belt. We might as well just be on a conveyor belt and just like pop, 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 pop. Okay, boop. That's a transaction. I don't want a transaction.
Yeah, so it's funny because you know how you didn't get the job at 16. Well, I did get a job at 16 working in a floral shop.
So you have,
but it was a conveyor belt situation. So it was that FTD. People would order that way, and then it was an exact like mug or bowl, and then I would stick the 4 carnations right here and move it on to the next 4 carnations. So I didn't get the floral design, if that makes sense, but I didn't love that either. Like I can tell that you love that, but it's interesting because you are naturally talented with that because your background is business. You know, so it's interesting when you have a passion for something, and it's so neat that you went back and did get that job because you did learn a lot probably from that floral shop.
Yes.
What you would do, what you wouldn't do.
Yes.
You know, and then, but it's also like, why work for somebody else when I can work for myself? But that, I want to talk about that because that takes on another set of, you know, making more money, but then also everything is on you if you lose money or, you know, whatever. So what took you from wanting to open your own business, you know, from not working for somebody to being an entrepreneur?
So I knew I wanted a flower shop, but I had no idea. I didn't know the name of the flowers. I didn't know how you buy flowers. I didn't know anything. I mean, the woman I worked for, she did not want to share a whole lot of information. And it was very, like, I could tell she had been hurt maybe by some past employees. One had left and was working at the floral place at the grocery store. So, I mean, there was lots of, like, she was very closed with a lot of her information. So I really didn't learn anything from her. But whenever I would try to create something and I would have a little sprig coming out because it just felt right to me, she would come by and she would cut it off and she would be like, it needs to be roundy moundy, know this, know that. It was like, so she was showing me like, it was just so confined and I didn't like it. And so I have always believed, do what you can with what you have, where you are, and that was my motto forever. But I have now added, and have faith, because the sky's the limit, really.
I love that.
And so I went back home and I started cutting wildflowers. I remember I started an Instagram account. It was Roots and Blooms, and I had 25 followers. And I remember I made 3 little mason jar wildflower arrangements I'd collected from my field, and I posted the picture, and I was like, first person to tag 3 people will get a free arrangement. And then I literally text all 3 of my friends and was like, please tag somebody so I don't look stupid. You know, it was like...
I'm glad you said that because people, you do have to do a little legwork behind the scenes to say, hey, I'm going to be doing this on Instagram. Can you please chime in?
Please participate and make it look like a thing.
Yes.
You know, because and so they did. They were so sweet, and I gave all 3 of them an arrangement, you know, and it was just like, that was my way of just starting to put it out there. I mean, those are big steps. I mean, I archived that post. I should probably put it back up there because I look back at those arrangements and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really thought, you know, that was a thing. But I honestly had no idea how to even get started. Again, didn't know the name of flowers, didn't know where to buy the flowers, didn't know flower care. I had no floral experience.
You just had a love of flowers.
I just had a love of flowers.
And nature.
And I knew a little bit about business. And so my husband, again, was like, okay, you didn't stick around at the flower shop. You really need to go get like an actual job. And then that's when I got into nonprofit, because I had been in for-profit and I was like, I don't want to go back to that because I need to be connected to what I'm doing, and I just can't connect to that anymore because it's all about money. So I was like, oh, I could do a nonprofit. So I became the marketing manager for the Bartlesville Regional United Way. And that's what I started doing. And I just still had this want to be connected with flowers. Well, I was scrolling through Instagram and there was a company in Tulsa. Their name's Anthocide, some of my best friends, and they are, oh my gosh, some of the most beautiful floral artists I have ever met. With their first retreat they were offering, they had been in the business for about 5 years, and they were like, okay, we're going to have this retreat. We're going to teach you how to do a bridal bouquet, a centerpiece, and an install. We'll have a model, we'll have a photographer, they'll take pictures of everything. It was $650. And I was like, well, I'm Comanche, so we get per cap, and my per cap money came in just at the right time. And I was like, I would like to use that to go to this retreat. So I did. I went to the retreat. I took pictures. I posted all of that on Instagram, my little page that I had been putting random stuff on. And I booked 14 weddings my first year.
Oh my gosh.
And I had not gone to a wedding since my own. I had no idea what you needed to do to be a wedding florist. I had no background. Anthocide was so nice that like I would text them and be like, what do I do? I'm not sure. They gave so much information during their retreat that I was able to kind of walk somewhat confidently into what I was doing. And did 14 weddings and that was in 2019. I had 14 weddings booked. By 2020, I had 32 weddings booked, and COVID hit.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those ended up postponing, and then we found out we were pregnant in December of 2019. So I have a 16-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 3-year-old. So we thought we were done. We didn't think we were having any more babies. And then we find out we're pregnant in December of 2019. I have 28 weddings. Some of those weddings one of them fell 4 days after her her due date, and then 2 weeks after her due date. I was in July, 8 months pregnant, doing a wedding. And when daycares were closed, I thought, what am I supposed to do? Daycares were closed. I had nowhere to put my newborn, so I ended up having to quit my full-time job. And I told my husband, I'm going to try to make this flower thing work. And that's whenever we opened Roots and Blooms Retail, daily deliveries, not just weddings and events, in 2021. And so we just started servicing the community. And again, no idea what I was doing. I had met another designer by happenstance who had been working for a floral shop there in Bartlesville for about 27 years and was laid off during
That's
COVID.
not happenstance, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. She was laid off during COVID. And she was at the point where she was like, based on her age, no schooling, she had done flowers her entire life. She was reeling. She had no idea what she was going to do. Do I go back to school and get a job? What do I do? This is what I've known. And I just happened to run into somebody who knew her, and I had all these orders coming in for Valentine's Day and had no idea what I was doing. So I got her number and I texted her, said, hey, do you want to come freelance with me? I could use some help. And she made about 8 arrangements to my one, and I had no idea. I had no funds coming in, nothing, but I knew I needed her. And I said, could we do like a 3-month trial? I could take out a loan for her payroll if I have to. I just knew I needed her here. So I offered her a job. She accepted. And within 3 months, she increased our business by 217%. So I'm like, it was insane because she knew what she was doing. She was pumping stuff out. She was giving me tips and tricks. And I said, do we need to go ahead and join one of those networks? And she said, absolutely not if we don't have to. And so we didn't. So our gig was, we were going into the community. I'm such a community person. So I was like, let's get in the community. We were bringing flowers. We started our grab and goes, which is probably one of our staple items we're most known for. It's just bundles you would find basically at a grocery store, except ours are actually more farm fresh and they're artfully created, and they're $35 or they're $22. So that kind of became our thing, and we were going in the community. We started getting more business. We started outgrowing our space. That started, the point where we needed to look for a bigger location. We looked for about 1.5 years in Bartlesville, couldn't find the right location. I had a woman contact me that had just bought a building in Pawhuska, and she said, I think you'd be a great fit for it. My husband actually worked for the ranch that they ended up buying, so she had kind of been watching me and what I've been doing, and I went and took a look at it. Had a dirt floor, a tree growing out of the middle of it, and it didn't even have a front, and I said, this is it. I know this is the space. And we had looked at so many locations. I gave a letter to each one. That was plan P. That's how many places I had looked at, business plans I had put together. I thought O was going to be our one. I said, Pam, start packing. I found our home, and it didn't end up being it. And so I was kind of mad because I had been praying about this location. I had been like, God, where is my home? And where's my door? And he said, how do you know if a door is open to you or closed if you're not even knocking? And I had gotten to a point where I had like started giving up and just thought, we'll never find a location. When she called, I thought, okay, fine. If I'm not knocking, I'll drive all the way out to Pawhuska. How am I supposed to have 2 locations? This is the craziest thing. I mean, I was kind of being a little bratty about it. I went out there, walked in, and it just felt like home, and I knew that was the place. So we opened our second location in 2023, February of 2023, right before Valentine's Day. We did more in walk-ins in the Pawhuska area than we even did in Bartlesville. And Bartlesville, there's amazing florists in Bartlesville. So our competition is pretty high there. They have multiple generational florists there in town that we're kind of trying to carve a little piece out of the market in. And Pawhuska, there's only one other flower shop. It's a Native American community. It's been amazing, and the community has been amazing. And we've met so many people. And then the Philbrook thing happened. So I mean, it was just kind of like we got our new space. And for me, I was just kind of like, what's next? This place is running. We have Bartlesville going on. Like, and even for me in my own journey, like, what's next? And there was times where, as a business owner, it gets so hard. There's multiple times I'm like, maybe I should just give all this up and go work for somebody, because the pressure of carrying a business, carrying employees. During COVID, we like doubled in business, and it was so good. Year after COVID was like, 2022 was probably, and into 2023 was the hardest years for us. And I think it was for all businesses. Flower costs were rising, and like, it was crazy. We were doing weddings in 21, and a rose that we would buy for like $4.99 a stem went to $17 a stem. And my contracts, I really didn't have a whole lot of that covered. So it was like, now I'm covering these costs, and I have these employees, and there's a lot of things like, yeah, you can go to business school, but until you're actually running your own business, there's a lot, to learn and all of that. So November 23, I started having thoughts of just shutting everything down. And it was the pressure of just making ends meet, constantly having to go out and find business. We're not a part of those networks, so we rely 100% on our community. We had just opened Pawhuska. That was doing well. Bartlesville was doing okay, but it was like, I never felt like we were really making any money. It's just like we were always bringing money in and money out, money in and money out, but there was nothing. There was like no profit. It just felt like I just couldn't get ahead of it. And so in November, I was thinking, like, maybe we'll just shut the doors and I'll just go work for somebody else, because this is becoming too much. And I ended up hiring a coach because I thought, this is my last ditch effort. He taught me more about pricing, because our model is different. Our model is different in what we do. So he really helped me understand my numbers in a whole new way, taught me pricing, and we were able to add about $60,000 in revenue in about 90 days, which was crazy, because I feel like I finally found hope, and he helped me tweak some things within my business. And, I had gotten to the point where I didn't think we were going to do weddings anymore. Then I opened myself back up to weddings, and then we got flooded with them. So it was just, there was so much that happened during that time. And I knew this on the inside. You're like, every great story there's always that down, that like hardcore down, that like, do I just give up and not continue? Do I just stop here? There's always that. And I kept telling myself, Whitney, you're just there. You're just in that pit before you just go over. And I am so glad I didn't, because then the Philbrook thing happened. Then I was able to sculpt. Like, I had never sculpted before. I haven't done anything really as artistic as we've done for this event. And I was really able to do that. And I feel like now I've really established who I am, what's most important to me. And I think I've gained a lot of confidence in just my ability and what we're doing. And I think I have a mission now, because I feel like when you get to that pit, really to get out of it, you have to decide, well, what is your why? What do you want? And what's that thing that's going to pull you over any hurdle? And I found it in that abyss, and now I know what I want to do. I want to make a way for other Native American florists. I want to teach the youth. I want to disrupt this market. I want people to know, do not order from a catalog, please. You're killing florists. The floral industry, I think there's like 60% decline of florists that are coming up, which means there's going to be a big gap in probably about the next 8 to 10 years of florists. You're going to see when these generational florists start dropping out and there's nobody to take their place. But what I've always believed, tried to really stay local, really build a relationship with your community, get in your community, become a trusted florist where people just, when they think of florals, they think of you. When they need a bouquet, they come to you. When they need a sympathy thing, they come to you because they trust you and they know what you can do. Mm-hmm. And we have people who will call me and they'll be like, here's my budget, whatever you do, we'll be happy with. And that's the best thing for me, because I actually get to create. And there's been times where I've like grabbed peacock feathers and not known why, like just random stuff. Like somebody will tell me who the person is, what they're wanting, and I'll find myself being drawn to some random thing that doesn't make any sense to me, but I just trust that. I'll throw that in the design, and then later I'll get this message of like, you have no idea how much that meant to me, because it had some significance to something else. And that is so just confirming to me that it's like, this is a gift that has been given to me, and it's just trusting and being led through this industry and just saying yes to really scary things and going for it.
Okay, I love that. So let me ask you, we've talked about the Philbrook. So how did that come about? Is that something where you applied to be in it? And then I want to talk about, how that happened, and then, what you've done, because you've now been able to sculpt, you're doing these different things. So it's an artistry, which Philbrook's a museum. So it's art in bloom. So tell me about all of that.
Yes. So, I had some friends, my friends from Anthracite, they did art in bloom, and I remember them posting about it on social media, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And there were a lot of florists that I look up to. There's Crooked Roots Designs out of Claremore. She is, her stuff is absolutely stunning. There's the Flower Shop Prior. Her stuff is just on another level. So there's a lot of girls that I really look up to for their artistry, and all of them have participated in this art in bloom. And I had somebody from my community that Philbrook had posted, they were taking applications for florists for art in bloom this year. Somebody tagged me in it and said, you should apply. So I was like, okay, fine. So I just applied, not thinking anything. I mean, I just always try to just follow. I was thinking about that the other day. I always try to say yes to everything, even when I don't know why. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, you got to learn how to say no. But there are some things that you just say yes to without any information. And so I said yes. Then I got the email, you've been selected for Art in Bloom. And I was like, okay, what does this even mean? And I honestly, I didn't get to go last year, so I had no idea what people were doing. I had just seen pictures, and I didn't know there were specific rooms and you were going to be selected. But I thought, okay, this is my chance to make art, because I still haven't felt like I've found my voice, and I've talked to other florists about that. So I was kind of pulling out of that, and I was talking to some other florists, and they were like, have you found your voice yet? My whole life have believed I wasn't creative. It's the wildest thing. I had a mom who would make our regalia. I had an aunt who would bead. I had another aunt who would, before Hobby Lobby had all those signs, my aunt did calligraphy. She had a sign for every season, and she had a little studio, and I remember watching her just paint for hours, and I just admired that. And we used to have craft nights at my grandma's house. So I have a ton of cousins that are all girls, and I have 3 aunts, and we'd go to my grandma's house, and everybody would come with a project. So it's like my mom would show up and she'd have fabric and we'd sew, or my aunt would show up with beads and we'd make jewelry and all this stuff. And I would get frustrated, I would throw it, and I'd be like, I'm just not creative. I can't paint. My handwriting is terrible. That means I'm not an artist. I'm just not an artist. Believed it my whole life. And then when I found flowers, it changed my life. I was like, okay. So then I started to believe, okay, if I can be creative, anybody can be created. We are all created to create in some way, and all of our skills and talents in whatever we create is different. You're creating this podcast, you're creating this atmosphere for, women and the students that you were talking about, and helping them understand that they can do anything that they want to. And I just think that that is so cool, and we're all meant to do something. So Philbrook gave me an opportunity to really touch that part of me and go, okay, if I was to create something, because fresh flowers are beautiful. I love fresh flowers. Obviously that's my business, but dried flowers are like my heart. I remember after weddings, and if we had bouquets that didn't sell, most florists, guess what they do? They just throw that in the trash. They just throw it in the trash. And I remember when I worked even at that flower shop, there'd be stuff that would be like blown, that they call it, like it would only last in a vase for a few more days, and she would just like gather it all up and be like, go throw that away. And I'd be like, I can't. So we hung up like, I think Pam was like, what are we doing? We were hoarding flowers, and I'm like, I have no idea, I just can't throw them away. So when it came to this art and bloom, I was thinking, I want to make something, but I want to use dried florals. I want to do something that's preserved, something that will last, a really long time. And then when I got the room, the room was Madonna and Child. And so it has Mary and Jesus. And I was like, okay, what can I do in here? There's just so much. And I started thinking, and then I'm Native American, and with this having less than 1% representation, I was like, I want to make a statement that we can be, like Native Americans are florists and we're artists, and we can do this too. And so I thought, what could I do? Well, that room and all the other artwork in there, I read the little plaque, and it said the pieces in there were celebrating the revival of sculpting in the 15th century with different techniques. So I thought, well, there we go. We're going to figure out how to sculpt with flowers. Tall order for, I've had like 3 weeks to work on it. And so I've never sculpted before either. So I got on YouTube and, what's the basics of sculpting. And chicken wire is my best friend. And I also go to church with a retired art teacher. So I was texting him constantly like, hey, this didn't work. What do you think? What could I try? All this other stuff. So he was
resourceful.
he was giving me tips, and he was like, you could try this, try that, and just really encouraging me along the way. And so basically what we ended up doing is chicken wire and air clay, because I didn't want it to be heavy, because I'm like, I'm going to have to transport this. So I was trying because I thought, well, I'll just do packing tape, but I didn't like the creases. There's so much. So then air clay ended up being what I decided to use, and my 3-year-old loved it. She actually helped. I have a video on Instagram. She was just she was putting it up. She loved the sculpting process, and we sat together, and she would just add clay onto the chicken wire, and it was something we got to do together. And my daughter, my 11-year-old, she helped some, but she was really the model that I used for the kid. And then I used myself for the mom, because I thought, oh, I got a body. I can just I can just tape myself up, do the same thing. And so that's kind of how it started coming together. And then I thought, well, now I need to cover it, because one of the pieces I really enjoyed in there, it was talking about, there was like a new way of covering this clay, but using color, because most of them have been like marble, and they chiseled it out, whereas like this, they were able to chisel it, but then they were also able to do color that would last a long time. So I thought, well, now I can use leaves. I wanted to use bark, because I was like, oh yeah, bark would be cool, and it could be the skin. But then we got the rules and regulations for Philbrook, and they're like, absolutely no bark, because insects and things could be in them, so you had to be really careful of what we're bringing in. So I was like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then I was like, I seen leaves, and I thought, well, that's what we'll do. So her entire face, the arms, the kid's body, the skin is all leaves. And as I started looking at all the different colors of leaves, and as I started laying them on the face, her face really started to take shape, and you could see her lips and her eyes, and it just was coming out of me. I can't even paint that way, but I was cutting these leaves and all these little shapes and making the eyes, and I stood back and I cried. I have cried so much looking at the mom and the child, and I just, every day I'm like, how is this even possible? And I go on Channel News 6 and I talk with Tess. My mom calls me and she's crying and she said, Whitney, did you see what they put under your name when they flashed you? And I said, no. She said, it said Native American Artist.
I knew you were going to say that.
And it took me a moment because I thought, okay, now I guess I'm an artist. And so you go from not feeling like I have a creative bone in my body to now being called a Native American artist, which feels overnight, but it has been a journey. And I just feel so thankful and so blessed. And really, a lot of this I feel like the more I have bloomed, it is because my roots have grown deeper with God. He is my foundation. He is where my confidence comes from. And I feel like the closer I have gotten to him, and this business has pushed me so much. I have had to rely on him. And in the scriptures say, when you call out, Lord, Lord, he will be there. There have been times where I had bills coming up and I was going, Lord, Lord. I have no idea how I might be able to make payroll in the next 3 months, but I have all faith and confidence in you. And then I have a bride who decides to pay early. I mean, it's just, that is a constant thing in my business. And even in November, when I thought about giving up and just this week of just torment, and then I had decided I will have hope in the Lord. We booked our largest wedding today. It was over a $20,000 wedding. I mean, and stuff like that doesn't happen. You don't just like in 1 week be like, oh, you can't plan for those things. You really can't plan for those things. You just have to trust. And so I tell people all the time when they ask me, I think I want to open a business. I'm like, get ready for a journey of finding out who you really are. And I tell people all the time, do what you can, where you are, with what you have, and have faith. And see where it takes you.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I love that. Okay, so we've talked about a lot of stuff, and so I'm probably going to wrap it up, but I do have one more question for you. So it's about my theme for this year. It's grow more, which is appropriate for you, but yes. Grow more in 2024.
Yes.
And so I feel like you have taken the onus on of growing yourself in your business, both personally and professionally. And you've talked about that, but is there anything else that you'd like to share on how you are growing in 2024?
Yes. So that has been something that it's funny because 2024, I was also thinking like, this is going to be the year that I really step into my calling. Like, I feel like, yes, I've been doing florals, and yes, now I'm an artist, and yes, it has been just a journey of me trusting and walking and trusting and walking. But I feel like this year is really the year that I'm going to grow the most. I had committed to writing a book back in 2023 that I'm going to release in August. I have been writing chapters here and there, and a lot of the chapters have come from that abyss to victory. Abyss to victory. What did I learn? My journal is full of those breakdowns to breakthroughs, and that has really gotten me into what is holding most of us back. And the book is going to be called Who Gave You Permission? Because talking with people and walking with people, and even myself, like when I thought about this Philbrook thing and I was like, I'm going to do this sculpture and I'm going to do all this stuff, it's like, nobody's doing that. That's not even what they asked. You're just supposed to go in with fresh florals and create this story with your florals and basically enhance the art. Basically, your floral pieces were to enhance the art, and if you could get some artistic movement and things with your pieces, like that's what that's what I understood is like, okay, that's the vision, that's the mission. But I thought that, no, I want to do something bigger than that. I want to do something bigger than that. So I chose to do the sculpture. And I remember as I'm telling everybody, oh, I'm sculpting. Everybody's like, what are you talking about? And even my husband, he was like, what is everybody else doing? Like, what is everybody else doing? And I thought, well, I don't know what everybody else is doing, but I know what I've decided to do, and I don't need permission to do it. They've given me a platform. They've given me the most beautiful space, and I'm going to use it. So I feel like in 2024, I'm really going to be walking into this calling of just unleashing people's creativity and helping them find freedom to do what they really should be doing, to get out of that money focused to passion focused. Because I really feel like you need to be passionate. Why waste this life serving money? And again, I'm not anti-money. That comes, but it comes so much better and freer when you're walking in your calling and your creativity is just flowing. And it's like the life you create so much better than if I just worked 9 to 5 for someone else. I mean, I think I could do a really good job for someone else if I was really passionate about the mission. And I have felt like each thing that I do, I really need to be passionate about it. Will I sculpt again? I have no idea. It depends. It depends if there is, like, I wouldn't sculpt to sell. Unless somebody called me and they're like, we have this, we're trying to speak, we're trying to use this to do something and we'll pay you this much to do it. I'd probably do that if it was purposeful, if it was meant for something, but I just wouldn't sculpt something to just put somewhere for somebody to buy, because I don't feel like there's any passion in that. And I really want to be connected. So for me in 2024, I really want to kind of grow into having more speaking opportunities to tell my story, to hopefully inspire people, maybe do a little coaching in the future. If there's some people that are like, I have no hope and I don't know what to do, I'm like, guess what? I've been there. I'll walk that, and there is always path. And I believe in coaching. The reason why I decided to hire a coach at my lowest point in my business was because I was able to grow that other business and expand into 2 markets and everything else, because I had a coach that I talked to once a week, that I was able to talk through things. They were able to help me break through my limiting beliefs. There was so much they did that really propelled me. So I thought, I know what I'm capable of doing when I have a coach behind me. And I hired one, and I am so glad I did. And I hope to do the same for people in the future.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, I'm wrapping up with that, and
yes.
I'm going to have you back again when that book comes out. So just know, yes. Put me on your list with your press tour. So anyway.
Okay,
well, this has been so fun, Whitney.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the opportunity.
Okay, everybody, that's a wrap on this week's episode. I want to thank you for listening to the Sharing Passion and Purpose podcast. It means the world to me, and I'd love to connect with you. Please follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Sharing Passion and Purpose, and Twitter at Passion Sharing. Also, if you like this podcast, it would mean a lot to me for you to subscribe, rate, and review it. And as always, all my show notes will be available on my website, sharingpassionandpurpose.com.